You know the feeling. You're watching the game, it's a nail biter, and then boom, you see it, an ad. Then another one, and another. It feels like they're literally everywhere, right? Just woven into the fabric of the sports we love.
You've got Bet Now flashing across the screen during a timeout. You're scrolling your social feed and a risk-free bet pops up.
An odds boost gets texted right to your phone. It's just this constant, kind of overwhelming flood of invitations to get in on the action.
So, here's the big question. Does any of this actually work? Are these ads just colorful background noise we've all learned to tune out, or are they fundamentally changing how we behave as fans and bettors? Well, let's take a look at what the evidence actually says.
The sheer volume of these ads, it's gotten so big that this has moved way beyond a simple marketing question. It's now a much, much more serious conversation.
In fact, a lot of researchers and even policymakers are starting to look at this explosion in advertising as a potential public health issue. They're really starting to dig in and examine the harm it might be causing, to individuals and to society as a whole.
So to get a real, solid answer, we're diving into a major scientific paper from the journal Addiction. And this isn't just one study. Nope, it's something way more powerful.
It's what's called a systematic review. Okay, so think of it like a study of studies. Researchers basically gather up all the high-quality research on one specific topic to see what the overall evidence says. It is one of the most reliable ways to get a really clear picture of what's going on.
And in this case, they didn't just look at a few studies. They analyzed the results of 22 different quantitative studies. That gives us a really robust, evidence-based look at the true impact of these ads.
So, what was the big conclusion? Well, the review found a really clear and consistent link between seeing these ads and an actual increase in gambling. And that was true across all sorts of different ad types. So yeah, the evidence says the ads are working. But the next question is, how exactly?
Because, and this is super interesting, it turns out not all ads are created equal. The review actually breaks them down to see which types have the most influence on us.
The research really hones in on 4 key categories. You've got your digital ads on social media, direct messages like texts and emails, those special offers they call inducements, and of course, the embedded ads you see everywhere, like on team jerseys.
Okay, now check this out, because there's a fascinating little detail when it comes to social media. One study found that when an ad comes from an affiliate account, one that's kind of disguised as tips from an expert or just another fan, it's actually more likely to encourage people to place complex and maybe even riskier bets compared to a straightforward ad from the betting company itself.
And what about those messages that come straight to your phone? The review found that direct messaging is significantly linked to higher betting spending. Texts in particular were singled out as a really powerful driver. The researchers think it might be because of their immediacy. That quick buzz in your pocket creates a direct line to action.
Then you've got the special offers, what researchers call inducements. And these things have a really interesting psychological effect. Here's how it works. An ad offers something like a stake-back bonus. This makes a bet just feel less financially risky in your mind. And the result? One experiment showed that people then became way more likely to choose riskier, long-shot bets. So the offer didn't just encourage a bet, it actually changed the type of bet people were willing to make.
And this all leads to one of the most critical findings in this entire review. These ads, well, they don't affect everyone in the same way.
The data consistently shows a pretty disturbing pattern. When you ask them, individuals who are already considered to be at a higher risk for gambling harm report being far more influenced by these ads than lower-risk gamblers are.
And look, this wasn't just a one-off finding. Seven of the 22 studies they looked at pointed to this exact same conclusion. The very people who are most vulnerable to gambling-related harm are also the ones who say they're most susceptible to the pull of these ads.
So with all this clear evidence on the table, what are policymakers and sports leagues actually doing about it? It's time to connect this research to the real world.
All right, first, let's do a quick recap of what we've learned from the evidence. Direct messages are tied to more spending. Inducements can push us toward riskier bets. Sponsorships increase the urge to gamble. And social media ads can lead to unplanned and riskier betting. It's clear that each type has its own distinct, measurable impact.
And you can see these findings aren't just sitting in a scientific journal. They're fueling policy debates all over the world. Back in 2023, an Australian report recommended a phased total ban on these ads. And looking ahead, the English Premier League is getting ready to start its voluntary ban on gambling sponsors from the front of team shirts.
These are direct responses to the growing evidence we've just been talking about.
So, the crucial takeaway from this whole deep dive is pretty simple. Sports betting ads are not just part of the scenery. The scientific consensus here, based on this huge review of the evidence, is that they actively and measurably influence our betting behavior, from how much we spend to the kinds of risks we're willing to take.
And that leaves us with a final, really important question to think about. As the worlds of pro sports and online betting become more and more tangled up, who holds the ultimate responsibility for protecting the fans from potential harm? Is it the regulators, the sports leagues themselves, or the betting companies?